I'm going to throw the slides in again. And I'm going to, I gathered from the reflective journals that I did get a chance to look at before class. There were a couple of things that I noticed, and I wanted to just kind of, talk about them and have a chance to make sure that y'all, if you have any questions, ask them. So some people are talking about the opportunity of still trying to make connections to math in our short amount of time together. And that's a big focus for me as well. And I want us to be able to do that. And I'm hoping, I'll be sending out when we do these reflective journals, maybe a short video of me doing some math or some things to think about so that when you get into your reflection, you can do your reflection. In your reflection, ask me lots of questions, talk to your peers. We're going to be doing some collaborative asynchronous assignments coming up. And most of you have filled out that partner form. But let's continue to ask lots of questions. And another big thing is to make sure that you reach out to me if you'd like to be able to meet and find some office time to sit and chat about it. Some people have talked about their math anxiety has decreased a little bit since the course has happened. Some people's has kind of been like a bit of a roller coaster. That's totally normal. I think that, the pressure of the production last week can be stressful in a good way, but still stressful. And so again, continue to reach out to me. I like that people spent a lot of time thinking about their M&M reflections and how color particularly played into it. We're going to start tonight in our groups, or at least in some groups, because I had taken a snapshot of all of the photos of who was in each group, and then that got deleted. So I'm going to open up rooms, and if you remember what groups you're in, great, but it's not, I don't think it's going to be super important to necessarily definitely be back in the group that you were in. And again, reaching out to me to make connections can be really beneficial. I love chatting about this stuff. I really want you all to feel comfortable reaching out. And so next week, I'm free any of the weeks to find time. But next week, since it's an off week, and especially since we have another reflection journal to do, please reach out. I wanted to talk about this idea of rough draft math, and I don't think it's something that I specifically talked about at the beginning of the class. But some people were talking about their anxiety and the reflections around kind of feeling like they need to get the right answer. And this could be the math class where I can guarantee you I could not care less about getting the right answer, or if there is a right answer when we do this. The only thing that I really care about is that you talk and explain what you're doing and your reasoning so that we can have a conversation about that. Sure, the right answer plays into it, but it should never be a focus. And so I always live by this rule that when we're in class, we're in rough draft mode at all times. And so making mistakes is a fantastic thing to be able to do because it allows us to really have conversations about learning. I don't want us to focus on trying to get the right answer. And so you'll see on my number 5 there, I say imperfect but precise. I want you to be specific when you're talking about things, but make lots of mistakes. Okay. So think about that when you're turning in your assignments and working on those things. Talk as much as you want about the math. Give me a final answer, please. But I want to hear that talking, that thing. So when you're thinking about this class, I want you, and we'll try to build that as we go. How do we be imperfect but precise? And then a couple of people were like, I need help. So again, just reach out. That's the best way that I can make sure that I can help you. So let's find some time to get together. Sound good? Great. So you all had a chance to maybe, hopefully, over the last couple of weeks, play a little bit more with the production that we did with the M&Ms. And we're going to spend a little bit more time on it tonight. We're going to get us back into groups. And what we're going to do in our groups is I'm going to give you a number, one last really big number of produced M&Ms. And I want you to talk in your groups. You're going to have 15 minutes. I want you to talk in your groups about how you could possibly put together an M&M structure for this big of a number, and then continue to produce, and then be ready to talk about what your system is, how you even did it. You could do it by drawing and showing pictures. You can just talk through it, whatever it is that you'd like to be able to do. But we're going to get ourselves into how many people do we have tonight. We're going to do 4 groups, and I'm going to let you all choose which room you want to go into. And if your version of Zoom doesn't let you do that, I can help get you into a group. And so if you all go to slide 3, I know that some people are still just kind of flying in, so I'm gonna throw the slides up again. If you go to slide 3, you will see that your group has produced 2,344,506 M&Ms. And you're going to kind of sit and think about, how do I represent that with M&Ms? How do I continue to produce? What are the important things I need to think about? What does my system look like? And so, as I said, I think we're going to do, we'll do 15 minutes. 10 minutes, actually. Let's do 10 minutes. I think that should be enough to be able to talk it through. And remember, each of the groups are going to be able to share their system in some way, shape, or form, how they did it, how they thought about production. And then we'll come back, everyone will share and we'll talk a little bit. And then you're going to hear me talk for like 15 minutes, and I apologize for that, but we're going to try to tie all of this together. So please go for it. The room should be open, so you should be able to click on breakout rooms and then just pick a room. So if you remember who was in your group, join them. If you don't, it should be fine because it might lead to interesting conversation anyway. Pick some different rooms too. If you're all are in room 3, it might get a little crowded, or it might be interesting. And if you need help to get into a room, let me know.
I'm gonna need help. I don't see where I get into a room.
I can do that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Can folks tell me, do you remember like who was in your group, or does it matter?
I don't remember.
Susan, I think you're muted.
I think I was with Jesse last time. I don't remember the other one.
I will put you all in groups.
Okay, sounds good.
Now Aaron moved. Jeez. Okay.
How's it going?
Hi. It's good. How are you?
Sorry, really good.
Good.
It's Monday, so
Yeah.
it's easy to feel good on a Monday.
That's true. It is a Monday and it's a holiday for most people. So we have fewer meetings, so that's good. I have heard that.
How
was the production?
Well, we're talking that maybe you just put us together because we didn't know what we were doing.
We're going to do lots of talking now. Oh, I think you're muted again, Susan.
Yeah, Susan.
You got me. We decided if we were back in elementary, we'd all have IEPs for math.
just two, Susan?
We should have more one size fits one approaches.
Yeah, nothing bad about that. I love that idea.
And we're back. How did it go? Can I get some thumbs sideways, up, down, all around? Okay. I would love for folks to just then kind of call out and share what were the highlights, what were the things that you thought about?
I feel like my group was contributing great ideas that I just didn't know what was going on. And I apologize because, of course, that's me. But I am just lost here. So if we could all have a group discussion, that would be nice. Thank you.
You bet. Other thoughts?
We needed to have a high quantity for each color. That's as far as we got. I mean, we didn't know how to divide it. We didn't know how to group it. We just knew each color had to represent a high number since our number was the millions. And then we were lost after that.
That's okay.
I feel like we decided to just follow the color representing place value, but there were 7 numbers and only 6 colors. We got a little bit hung up there, to be perfectly honest. We ended up having rainbows in the ones, which was great until we just had one representing the ones column. And then it was confusing, I think. And then we all felt like it was just a foreign language that we couldn't understand. I'm not going to speak, actually, I can't speak for everybody. That is very much how I felt. Like I was in
I've seen
a
some
foreign
people,
country and didn't know the language.
the number of digits are very purposeful, and because you do end up getting into more than the number of colors that you have. I've seen some people cut M&Ms in half and do like kind of 2 colored ones, different ideas, different things that you can do. Maybe can we do one more reflection, one more thought, and then I want to talk about some things.
Yeah, in our group, we also talked about the colors representing place values, but then we also talked about in the beginning how the numbers were so low that maybe 1 or 2 colors were used. And as the production went up, the more colors were added, which allowed us to expand on the production.
Great. Nice reflection. Erin, was there something that you wanted to add too?
Oh, I guess I'm off mute. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So we started to kind of talk about the zeros a little bit and just trying to understand like what that meant for, so we're not writing and if we're representing place values by colors, or at least I have been like really stuck on that 0 and just understanding, because, yeah, you could leave a gap, but, and then I just did a repeating color for the additional color because I don't know, that was my solution to the 6 colors and 5 number, or 6 colors and 7 place values.
Gotcha. Thank you for bringing that up. We're going to talk about 0 today. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a couple of minutes. And I'm just going to show you all an example, or I'm going to play kind of a little production myself. It sounds like I have like a musical number working up. I absolutely do not. There's no where it's going to be all M&M production. Might give me a second here to get my iPad up and running. No, hey, can everyone see that? Okay, so I don't have enough M&Ms because I've been stacking on them to actually do things by color. But what a lot of people were talking about was that each one of these columns, and you notice I've listed them out as 1s, 10s, 100s here, with separate colors, right? So we take maybe the blues are going to be the 1s, and the browns are going to be the 10s, and the orange are going to be 100, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. So that's how I saw a lot of people do it. And that's a great way to think about it. And we've broken it up into a very specific way that we are going to be talking about a little bit tonight. specifically around how we think about putting things in places. But I want to get at a couple of ideas while I have the video up and running here. So right now I have noticed that I put things in 5 because we've talked a lot about subitizing. We have 5 and 1, so that gives me 608 total. There is one way for us to look at this. Okay, so now what I want us to think about, and actually since you brought up the 0, we can maybe even start there. The reason why we have 0 and why it makes sense is because we do need that placeholder in the middle there. If that 0 is not there, what we end up having there is 68, right? We need that to be able to hold place. And you may have noticed that I've been saying, I haven't used the main words yet, but I've said the word place quite a bit in the last couple of minutes. And so one of the things we really need to think about is that we have place values. So when we don't have something within a certain place, we have that holder there. So the 0 becomes a really important concept. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to roll a die. Oh, no, come on. What are the chances that all I needed was a 2 or bigger. I got a 1. I'm going to do this again. Thank you. I got a 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of production here. Hopefully I have 5 M&Ms left. Okay. So you may notice in the ones I currently have 8 M&Ms. And so I'm going to start. I've got my 5 extra M&Ms here. And I'm going to start producing. I've got 9. Now I have 10. Can someone maybe just share what they did in production? What happened at this point?
You took them all away and then moved one over to the tens. Because you're representing one M&M in your tens value.
Yeah, right. Something happens here when this happens. Once we hit 10, those all go away, and then we were able to put one in the next place. I'm going to stop my screen, my share just for a second here, because there's a couple of important topics here. Number 1, what is the last number that exists before we had to make that change? So we were counting up, right? We were producing M&Ms. What's the last number that showed up before we had to make that change?
9.
9. Thank you for that, Christy. 9 becomes a really important number in our number system because it's always the last number before that experience, that thing happens. And so we have a very special name for that number, and we call that, does anyone know? We call that a unit cap. So we start and we count up all of these numbers. We go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I just put those in there. If I produce another M&M, as we noted, something happens. So since 9 is the last number, those numbers from 0 to 9, that number 9 before that thing happens is called a unit cap. Important concept. What is that thing that happens? If we call 9 a unit cap, that experience where we add one more and we move what we have in one place to another is called a unit exchange. That becomes really important as we start to think about what ends up happening when we're going through and doing these experiences. So those are our first 2 number things that we want to think about. Because what we started creating, what you all were creating, whether you knew it or not, was you were building a system of places. And we call that place value in math. And that, I think, honestly, is probably the most important concept, is understanding place value in terms of number sense when we want to work with young students. Because place value is what confuses students when they get into double-digit addition. When they try to do multiplication, when we start doing, y'all are going to have to do like the multiplication algorithms at near the end of the course, or long division. I saw some looks when I said the word long division, right? The reason why students get that confused is because they don't understand this concept of place value. And very specifically for the concepts I just talked about, what we were creating were systems called place value base 10. Does anyone have any thoughts why we say place value base 10? Why is it base 10?
Because 0 to 9 is 10 digits. So we're keeping it at that.
Beautiful. And so in a base 10 system, we have important things. We've got a unit cap in a base 10 system. And what is our unit cap? We said
9.
9. Awesome. And then after 9, if something gets added to it, we have to create a unit exchange. Awesome. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the system that we have in place that we work with when we spend time with our students. We consider it to be a place value based 10 system. I'm going to talk about each of those separately a little bit though. So base 10, as I have written here, is really being able to group things by 10, which is what we were doing, right? We were doing things 5 and 5. Then we had to do some sort of unit exchange to go to the next. I'm going to say place, but not say place because we're not in place yet. But when we group things by 10, what we're doing is we're creating a base 10 system. And so that connects to a whole lot of different things when we're learning and talking about math. When we have, you know, I'm sure you all at some point remember doing exponents, right? And so each of our places can actually be explained by a level of exponent to a level of 10. So our ones, all of those ones, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, in the ones place can all be represented by 10 to the power of 0, because there isn't quite a 10 yet, and 10 to the 0 is 1. Or if you wanted to get to the idea of 1,000, right? 1,000, the thousands place is 10 times 10 times 10, which is 10 to the 3. And so that's a different unit. So each exponent level of 10 gives us a different place to put things. Questions? So we have 10 to the 1 is the ones. Let me just type this into the chat as we talk, just so that we have a place. 10 to the 2 is, I can't type tonight. 10 times 10 equals the 100s. Oh, sorry, I totally, 10 to the 1 is actually, 10 to the 0 is the ones. 10 to the 1 is the 10s. Sorry. And so in order for things to be in base 10, these are the 3 things that we need to think about. Everything is going to be a different power of 10. The unit cap is going to be 9. We make that unit exchange at the 10. The other important part of this is this idea of place value, right? So if you all created a separate place to be able to put your M&Ms to represent each of those different unit sections, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, hundreds, thousands, millions, you created a place value. And so as I mentioned here, in our the numbers that we use are the Hindu Arabic system. where each digit has a value that's represented by its place. The order matters. So like if I have 1,205, the 1 has to go in the 1,000 spot. The 2 we can't mix up those numbers, otherwise we have a completely different number. Because the position or the place determines the value of them, each of those. And so as you move forward in the places, it gets to a higher exponent. So remember, we talked about the tens, 10 to the 0 is the ones, 10 to the 1, and we each added 0 to each of those, and we end up building our system. So with all of those things together, we have what we call place value base 10. So I want you to think for a second and think about the counting that you did do. Did you all have a place value system, a base system, base 10 system, or did you have both? Or did you have neither? Now I'm gonna have an amendment. A couple people want to kind of talk or think for a second. Reason through, ask questions.
In my group, I actually messaged her. So Cynthia was trying to explain to me how she was explaining the unit exchange. And I guess I just wasn't getting it because we didn't, I mean, they all have their own concepts. I just didn't have like a unit cap. I wasn't aware of the unit cap, so I didn't know about the unit exchange until I eventually saw it. So Cynthia talked about it a little bit, so I'm glad I got a better understanding of what she was saying.
I think if I'm right, in our group, we were trying to go by, we started with place value and then we moved to the basis of 10. And that's where we were kind of struggling, if I'm right, because we were so stuck with the place values thing that when we got higher level, we were getting confused how we're going to represent it. And now when we are talking about this, it makes sense. So yeah, it's getting a lot more clear now.
Yeah, I feel like we were really hung up on the color and the representation, and we were not.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chrissy, you mentioned in the chat, carrying the 1. Can anyone tell me what carrying the 1 means? Because I can't, but you all might have an example of explaining what carry the 1 actually means.
I guess
So let's say you,
sorry.
so it's like, let's say it's 29 plus 1, and then 9 plus 1 is 10. So you bring down the 0, and then you put the 1 on top of the 2, you get 30.
That is a fantastic explanation of what happens when we do the algorithm, when we do addition. And we're actually going to dive into that tomorrow when we meet again. But does it explain what's actually happening with the math, or is it kind of like a trick to be able to answer? It's a trick, right? Like carry the 1 doesn't have any sort of meaning or value mathematically, because what's happening is we've broken beyond the unit cap of 9 and we had to do a unit exchange. That's what happens when you're carrying whatever, when we're doing the addition algorithm, we're carrying the 1, but we're not allowed to say that word ever again, that phrase ever again. You can say it, but I'll probably make a joke about it. Yes, follow the rules and not to think critically. New vocab, yeah. Who knew that working with early childhood and early elementary, you all have the most intense vocab, I think, in math. Like things get a little intense again at calculus, but algebra, there's nothing crazy in there. It's the early learning, subitizing, unit exchange. We're going to talk about one-to-one correspondence. Maybe not tonight, maybe. I mean, what does that even mean? So honestly, I have to hand it to you all because you all have some really intense vocabulary to think about when we talk about learning math at this level. But it's also exciting, I think. Anyone else, any other kind of one shares about what you noticed about either place value or base 10 or place value base 10 when you were having your conversations?
I learned math in Urdu, this Hindu Arabic system. So to this day, if I see a longer digit, I will do it. Ikai, dhai, sekra, hazar, lakh, da lakh, crore, da crore. So I am just like doing it in my head, and that tells me what does that number mean. So I think it's just the way you learn it and it's ingrained, and that place value thing matters because it's in our lives and that's how we process it, at least in my hand. I just go with that language all over to figure it out what number I'm reading.
Great reflection. I'm going to show a quick math problem. That's kind of jumping ahead, but I hope that it kind of draws a quick connection. And then we're all going to do some counting, which might sound exciting, maybe a little bit easier than this, but we're going to just do some counting. It might be, it might not be. We'll see. So I'm sure that you all have seen lots of problems like these before. 42 plus 56. You see them on top of each other. And this is the opportunity, like Chrissy had mentioned about that carrying the one.
No,
but
because 8.
But I want us, what we're going to do is we're going to think about this problem very briefly. But we're going to think about it, even though I chose completely wrong numbers. 1 second. Thought I wrote 47 plus 56. We're going to look at because I want a unit exchange to happen. So we have 47 plus 56. And so can anyone kind of talk me through, either in the chat or out loud, what's the first step that you do when you go through and you solve these?
So I would add 6 and 7. You come up with 13. I would put the little 1 above 4 in the second column, and then add the 1, 4, and 5 to come up with 10. 103.
Yeah. Perfect. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a really great way to describe the algorithm. And the algorithm is a thing that students actually do need to learn when they're going through school. But I'm going to phrase it slightly differently. That hopefully draws a couple of connections to what we've been talking about in place value and starts to explain why students struggle with this a little bit. So the first thing that we end up doing is we added the 7 and the 6. But adding 7 and 6 is going to bring us above the unit cap, isn't it? Right? So we're going to have to make a unit exchange.
Unit exchange?
Yeah. Right? So we leave the units that are there in the ones, the 10 to the 0 connection. And then we bring not a 1 over, because we're not carrying a 1. That is way more than a 1. That is a 10. And we're adding 4 10s plus 5 10s together, which gives us 9 10s. And then we add 1 more 10, which gives us 10 10s, which is a unit exchange, which is why we add a 1 in the next column. And we have that placeholder there, the 0. And a lot of students make mistakes solving questions like that because they're taught carrying the 1. They don't realize the steps, the things that actually happen in the background is that we breached the unit cap. So we had to make a unit exchange. We're not, the second column is not adding a 4 and a 5 together. It's actually adding 40 and 50 together. And then we add another 10 on top of that. And that gives us yet another unit exchange and goes on. The Y was missing, Christy, exactly. And so that's why, can you all see after struggling through this, how students can find this really confusing themselves? This is why addition and subtraction gets mixed up in early elementary. When we start getting a little bit older, this is why multiplication and division. I would go through and do a multiplication problem too, but it would just take up a whole bunch of time. But you would see exactly the exact same thing. Unit cubes to represent concepts instead of M&Ms. Unit cubes don't go down as well as these, but yeah, that's a good point. Right. Yeah, this is where math traumas and math anxieties show up. Right? Tips and tricks. And so I do want us to spend a little bit of time setting up next or 2 weeks from now, so that we can really get into addition and subtraction a little bit. But we're going to be doing addition and subtraction a little bit differently. And so I need some reminders. We're in base 10 place value base 10 system. What's our unit cap? 9. After what do we have to make a unit exchange? And then what happens with the unit exchange?
You have to move the place value and it becomes a base 10.
Yeah, perfect. Now I'm going to ask you, we're going to stay in place value, but we're going to move to a different base. We're going to move to base 4. And so I'm going to ask the same questions. What happens in base 4? What would our unit cap be?
Would it be 3?
9,000?
3? Yeah. So in a base 4 place value system, we only have the numbers to work with. These are all of our digits in base 4. So if you scroll back up, right, the digits for base 10 are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In base 4, our numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's count a little. We're going to start with 0, and I want you all to just unmute and one at a time just start to count. And let's see how far we can get. We're going to count in base 4. So,
1.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, we can start at 1. That works too.
Oh, wait, so you said base 4. Sorry. So 3?
So no, we still in base 4, we still started 0.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
wow.
and we're just going to count up.
All right, 0.
0, 2, 3, 4.
What did we say after 3?
4.
So then it then becomes 40?
These are good guesses, and these are good things to think about. But remember, in base 4, if you look over in the chat, the only digits that we have are 0, 1, 2, and 3. Our unit cap, which we talked about, is 3. What happens after a unit cap?
Exchange.
We have to do a unit exchange, and we move to a whole other place in place value. So what comes out? So what can anyone guess? What is the next number after 3?
0.
40.
31.
These are good guesses. These are good things to think about.
I'm feeling confused because it wouldn't be 10 because we're not going all the way up to 10. We're just going to base cap 3. And so the confusion for me is when you do move it over, what are you actually moving over? Because usually you would move over the 10, but instead you're moving over the 4.
You were actually absolutely right, Aaron. It does become 10, but we don't say it like that. We actually say it as 1, 0. And so I'm going to write out the first kind of couple of numbers, and then I'll show you on video again, just so that we have a sense of how we write these out. Just give me 2 seconds here. And then I'm going to share my screen again. So when we're in base 4, one of the things to notice is that we want to state that it's base 4, because if we just write numbers without a base in them, the overall assumption is that we're in base 10 because that's the number system. We don't write like 0 base 10 with a little, we call that a subscript. So you would say 0 base 4, 1 base 4, 2 base 4, 3 base 4, but 3 is our unit cap, which means that we now have to do a unit exchange and switch and add that to be, and the way that we say that, and I want us all to remember this because it's very easy to forget, that becomes now 10 base 4. So with that said, what's next? What comes after 10 base 4?
1 base 4.
1 base 4, yeah. Then
1 2 base 4.
you bet.
And that will go till 1 9, right?
So let's think about it. Let's take it one step at a time. So we've got one, well, the last one was 1 2 base 4.
Sorry to jump ahead.
So then the next one, wouldn't it be 1 3 base 4, and then you would do a unit exchange that it would go to 2 0 base 4?
Yeah. That's great. What comes next?
2 1
2 1.
4.
Next.
2 2 base 4.
That.
2 3 base 4.
Mm-hmm.
3 0 or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Very good. Let's keep going. We're gonna go. We'll do a couple more.
3 1 base 4.
You bet.
3 2 base 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then would it be, well, then 3 3 base 4.
Yeah. We're in rough draft mode. I want us to remember that. What comes after 3 3 base 4?
4 0 base 4. But
Good
now it's a
thinking.
4. So now what's going to change here?
Good
Or
question.
the
Great.
hundredths place.
So what comes after 3 3 base 4?
Will it move to the hundredths place? So would it be 1 0 0 base 5?
Base 4. But yes,
Okay.
right? Then we go 1 0 0. Good question, Susan. It again helps us connect to the basis. And so, you know, you'll probably hear some people say 10 base 4, 11 base 4, 12 base 4, 13 base 4. When we talk about it in here, we're going to focus solely on each individual digit because we want to understand each of the digits and where they fit within place. So we're going to say it out this way. And that's how most people end up kind of when they're dealing, like in binary, when you're talking about computer code, they kind of go 1 0 0. It's either ones or zeros. And again, if you notice in base 2 or binary, it's just the number 0 and 1 because 1's the unit cap. And then after that, you make a unit exchange. And so, yeah, so it becomes 1 0 0 base 10. And then we keep going 1 0 1, 1 0 2, 1 0 3, 1 1 0, 1 1 1. Again, base 4 after each of those. And so was this a like, oh, wow, we get a really good sense of place value. And then Dennis throws us in base 4. Is that how that felt a little bit? I apologize for that. But that's going to be our focus for the coming weeks, is we're going to be doing and thinking about addition and subtraction, still in place value, but in base 4, not in base 10. Because again, I want us to really think about and understand and connect to those ideas that we talked about tonight, the idea of unit cap, unit exchange. What does it mean to be in a base? What does it mean to be place value? And so that's going to be our focus the next week. We're gonna look at it a couple of different ways. We're gonna do more counting. We're going to represent them pictorially because I want us to make kind of a concrete connection to that. We're going to do addition and subtraction as well. And so that's our goal for 2 weeks from now, is to really dive in and try to understand and get a good sense of base 4. So my thoughts and recommendations. If you want to reflect on base 4 for this upcoming reflection journal due next week, go for it. If you would rather stick with place value, unit cap, unit exchange, or something completely different, you can do that as well. And most importantly, again, just please reach out, and I'd love to be able to find some times, either the end of this week or next week, to be able to sit and talk about it. And even if you know you can't quite get the reflection journal in by Monday because you want to have a chance to meet with me first, that's also totally fine. And then again, remember, in 2 weeks we'll be back here diving a little bit deeper into base 4. I'm going to have you do a lot more. We're going to do a lot more counting in 2 weeks.
Can I ask you a question about our reflective journal?
You bet.
I think you started to answer it a little bit in the beginning, but just for clarification, the readings, are they something that we're going to start talking about more in Zoom? But then are we using the readings with the reflective journal, or are we using what we're doing in class with the reflective journal?
You can do either, to be honest with you. The readings are really support pieces to be able to sit and think about what we're doing in class. If we start doing specific activities connected to the readings, I think with an hour's time, we won't be able to do very much hands-on things like this. And so the idea with the readings is that they're there to support and give you some ideas of things to think about. So now tonight's ones were mostly around addition and subtraction, because I was hoping that we could get to that. And so those are going to be the types of things that we'll really kind of hopefully use and be thinking about when we meet next 2 weeks from now.
That was kind of my confusion, because it was addition and subtraction in the reading, and then we didn't really do. So I wasn't sure how I was going to tie the readings to the reflective journal. So thank you.
Yeah, no, they're there as companion pieces, to be able to kind of think about some of the ideas before we get to class. So when we think about them in some weird way that I concoct, you've got some reading. And if you have questions about the readings, we can take some time for that. But I think that the current decision and the way that I'm thinking about it is that they need to be a companion piece, or we'll be spending a lot more time talking about readings and not doing hands-on stuff in an hour's time. If you have other questions, please let me know. But otherwise, thank you all for some good work tonight.
I have a quick question. So I know on the place value, that's like the traditional counting and all of that. So base 4, what is it used for? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, why are we counting this way? Where is it used in practical life? You know, if I'm trying to make sense of it, that's where I'm confused at.
Probably you will never use base 4 for anything. But different bases are used in all kinds of situations, right? When we think about colors, when we, on the internet, everything is in a hexadecimal base. Computer code is all in binary. There are a lot of different base systems that are being used, but the reason why we choose a base and a kind of a smaller base is for us to be able to focus on the ideas of place value in a different context, so that we can strongly understand them, because you already have your own connections to place value base 10. And some of them might be kind of rote memorization, and some of them aren't. But to kind of force us to spend some time thinking in a different base will give us more of a chance to think about, what is it to learn this new for the very first time? And then how can we make those connections?
No, thanks. Yeah, because I'm trying to, to me, it's more abstract, and I'm trying to bring it concrete as to where is that connection. So no, thank you. It makes sense.
And as I said, we will actually be concretely looking at it. We're going to be looking at like different pieces of things and being able to draw and make pictorial representations in 2 weeks from now. That'll be the focus. So it'll be some counting, but it'll also be, let's actually play with things and manipulate numbers and do those unit exchanges and things like that.
Thank you.
That was a good question though. I like that.
Okay. Have a great night.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Sylvia.
Bye.
Bye, Sylvia. Erin, if you want, we could jump on my Zoom. Are you wanting to chat for a minute?
I just briefly, yeah, if you want to jump on our Zoom, I just wanted to wait till.
Whatever's fine. We can stay here if Dennis, if you don't mind.
No, yeah, I can let you all just kind of be.
We were just gonna jump. I was just gonna ask some questions about my other class.
Okay. Yeah.
A little bit.
So I got your Google Doc. I haven't had a chance to read through it yet because I was